Hey folks, MasakoX here. Now, I did a little bit of research using my analytical jiggery-pokery tools that I have on YouTube and found out that some of you out there are very much of the opinion of searching for Android 21 stuff. I know why, you saucy chappies you. However, I shall not be telling you to stop it because on this occasion, it's helped me. And I'll instead pick up on something that was suggested to us recently on our weekly roundtable live streams, where you can join us and propose your ideas to us, whilst also supporting the channel, and perhaps get your idea made into one of these videos. Just like Insufferable Anarchists to the Land of Chaos and Graves. They did that. That's the longest username I've ever seen, actually. They asked about the idea as to what could happen had Android 21 been the one to raise Goku. This is something that doesn't make too much sense when you look at it face value and you look at time and history and stuff. But when you step back and look at the bigger picture, the potential, it's rather intriguing and rather divergent from what we normally could get. We normally receive similar requests for what if Gero raised Goku? And our short answer would be normally, not good. When Gero would find out Goku was not of Earth descent, you can imagine some rather spoopy Roswell type of stuff going on here. Let's set the scene as to how 21's influence could spell Goku's future. And if you like this idea, why don't you like this video, subscribe for more content, and also maybe perhaps leave a cheeky super thanks while you're at it? Thank you. In any case, in this world, Goku landed somewhere differently. And unlike our timeline where he landed at Capsule Corp, however, we are immediately into a quandary. You see, Android 21's history's muddled, to say the least. If you look at the Kakarot games, 21 actually worked for Capsule Corp, known as the female researcher, which helped develop the gravity room for Vegeta in the 3-year timeskip before the Android saga in the game. Does that mean that 21 would have been human when Goku landed on Earth? Well, yeah. So what are you gonna do here to make this work? Well, I'm gonna combine the Kakarot stuff with what we have in FighterZ and other things to make a hybrid story. Sort of like what we did in part 0 of the Gine story. You can check out the full story video up here. Okay, now we've got some of the groundwork down, I can get to the meat of this video. It's age 737. Goku has landed on Earth and been found by the Red Ribbon researchers in one of their local depots. The Saiyan pod created a massive crater amongst the parked vehicles and equipment, and naturally, it would have angered Commander Red when he found out about it, that some of his precious tools and stuff had been destroyed. Then again, when he finds out that there has been something rather interesting coming his way, something developing, that the thing that crashed wasn't just some meteorite, it was some kind of transport vessel that had never before been seen on Earth. He sends out his best scientists to investigate because of it, including Dr Gero and the female researcher, who we will name, for the sake of brevity and in keeping with 17 and 18's human monikers, Hema, after the red crystal hematite, because red hair. So just be aware before we proceed that this is more of a placeholder name rather than us going all fanficky on you. I just think me saying the female researcher time and time and time again would get a little bit monotonous. Gero and Hema are on the ground first and foremost to check out the pod and find a way to bring it back to the former's lab in Red Ribbon main headquarters. At first, Gero is rather excited to see what is going on with this thing. Is it some kind of treasure? Some sort of vehicle? If so, what could be inside? Hema wasn't so sure about this though. At this point in the story, she was a nervous individual about new tech, and only worked with Red Ribbon at the moment out of necessity. This playing off of her true persona in the game, where she is much more good-natured than you think. To explain why she's working for Red Ribbon then, she probably had no luck finding work until she met Gero, who promptly took a liking to her and, well, you know, they had a kid, Gero, our human Android 16. I can imagine there's quite the age gap between her and Gero, but their connection and attachment with Gero meant that she was kinda stuck here with him. Either way, she didn't like these wild ideas that Gero would normally have, and she wouldn't like what he was about to cook up later on once they got the pod back to the lab. After hours of figuring out the codes and locks on the pod, they were able to open up the pod to reveal a baby? Immediately, Hima felt a pang of apprehension. This child was so human-like. For all intents and purposes, it may as well have been one. Put that child on a cot in the hospital. You couldn't tell the difference, other than the tail, but also, there were beast kids out there and beast men, so a tail on a human child? That was relatively small fry. She got closer to the sleeping babe and felt warmth toward it, as well as a reassuring aura. However, that was until the little Kakarot woke up. When he did, he lashed out in panic at the unfamiliar environment and attacked Hima. Well, I say attacked, more like he bowled her over whilst on top of her. She tried to calm him down, which was working somewhat. Her soothing voice and calm nature was enough to start to quell Kakarot's fear response. But Gero was not swayed. He immediately ran over and shocked the baby to stop. Cattle prod. But this is a Saiyan Gero. It's going to take more than one of those to take him down. But, in response, the baby bit down on Hima's hand and she let out a shriek of pain. With a few more cattle prods though, Kakarot was knocked out cold again. Gero did not ask Hima whether she was alright. He was more focused on the alien baby. Fascinating. He then motioned for some of the guards to prepare his main laboratory for a deep dive as to the child's makeup. But Hima knew what that meant. As Kakarot was sleeping off that shock, Hima tried to convince Gero not to do what she feared he would do. Gero, please, this child poses no threat. Why are you acting like there's some kind of freak? Gero turned to her and scowled. Because this is a freak of nature. From outer space! Do you have any idea what that transporter and that alien could mean for the advancement of science? The former alone could revolutionize personal transportation, and the creature? Well, the possibilities are endless. What do you mean? I took a blood sample from it just now, before you got here to interrupt me, and it turns out that it is indeed not from this world. The metabolic responses from the tests are nothing like I've seen before. Meaning? Well, isn't it obvious? We must put this alien to more tests. We need to understand everything about it. Hima looked sternly back at the doctor. So you're gonna poke and prod this infant for the rest of their life? Gero scowled back. Don't be so dramatic, woman. The thing is unaccompanied. No one will miss it. There's no reason to fret. Nothing bad will come of this. I know you saw that I sent Gabo off to boarding school, so don't transpose your feelings onto this. You did that without telling me, by the way, interjected Hima. But you need to understand that your petty grudges must not get in the way of our mission to innovate, accelerate mankind, ensure the army's success for years to come. Do not let your emotions get in the way. Hima countered. Oh, really? Sounds like your emotions are doing just that, Doctor. Those of greed, mania, and obsession. Gero clenched his fist. State your business or be gone from my sight. Hima was about to tell him, but faltered. She merely turned to Kakarot and walked out, determined to ensure that Gero would not torment this child any longer. She had to do some thinking. Now, part of what Gero said was true. His idea of bettering humanity was a noble idea, something for all scientists to strive for, but sadly, his mania, drive, and slight insanity had gotten the better of him. Not to mention his old age, it had started to foul his brain up somewhat. He had become set in his ways, very narrow-minded. But anyway, Hima was determined to save the child's life as best as she could. Initially, it was hard. Gero would spend many days running test after test on the infant, in a sterile clinical room, unmoved by his meek cries for food, water, and affection. Gero was unfazed though. Since this creature wasn't from this world, he had no attachment to it whatsoever. It was as good as an animal. He didn't even see the parallels toward this babe in Gabo, his own son. Nope. He was able to remove himself completely in the pursuit of its experiments. When all was said and done for the day, Hima would be left to clean up and be the mother that Kakarot needed. She didn't give him a name though at the time, to ease the pain should Gero tire of the infant. However, that didn't mean she wouldn't be any less affectionate. She would feed, clothe, and comfort the child. And even though the first few weeks were rough, Kakarot then grew to associate Hima with safety. Sure, he would kick up a stink some days, naturally, but Hima would have the patience to persevere. That patience paid off. Once Kakarot had fallen asleep and Hima had gotten the idea and retired for the night, She would then conduct her own research, figuring out a just means to ensure that the boy could live a much more reasonable existence. Once she had done so, she would send it off to Commander Red for further study and consultation. She sent it off quietly, not telling any of her colleagues, not even the ones she trusted, in case it got back to Gero, and he may take drastic measures. The day came not long after she sent it off, where things would get better for her and the baby. Commander Red demanded an audience with Gero and the boy. He just turned up unannounced. Red examined the child, who had been cleverly sedated by Hema, all to prevent any random lashings out. For his own good, of course. It wasn't too strong. Red was very coy with his reason for being there, to which this ultimately led to Gero becoming impatient.
Might I inquire as to why you've interrupted my studies? Commander.
Red whipped around and gave the doctor a nasty glare.
You're not paid to question my actions, Doctor. I wish to check this kid out personally. What is your end goal with them then? Once my studies have concluded, I will have it cut up and run more granular tests on it. Not if I have to say anything about that. You're to cease your line of experiments now. I've got a better idea for the kid.
Gero was floored.
What? Hema, come here. You really think this one could be the ultimate super soldier?
Hema nodded. Indeed. Upon my own close examinations, the boy's cognitive and kinetic responses are far greater than any human infant his age. To expire this child or subject it to questionable practices would be most unwise. You saw my report, Commander. It's clear as day. Commander Red nodded with pride.
Yes, quite right. Super soldiers are a handy tool. Heck, even a mascot for the company. Hema, you get your wish. Staff Officer Black, take the child to its new quarters. We gotta make sure our new champion is properly tended to.
Red walked out, whilst Black took the sedated Kakarot away to be housed elsewhere. Once the door had been closed, Gero tore into Hema.
How dare you! You dare to undermine my authority and findings! I told you to spare human emotions in the pursuit of science!
Hema pushed back. I couldn't! You'd be squandering something truly remarkable! That child is not a lab rat! I'll make sure he's raised well! Be of use! The commander took a liking to him anyway. Gero stormed over to her and was about to smack her. Careful, she said calmly. You don't want to anger the commander any more than you already have done, do you? Gero lowered his fist after seconds of hesitation. You've got your blood and materials, Doctor. Play with those instead. With that, she was gone, subsequently reassigned to tending to the new red ribbon super soldier. As time wore on, Kakarot grew up under Hema's care, but that didn't make his life overly happy or serene. He was still considered a tool in the eyes of Commander Red, but at least he was given plusher quarters, a good diet, and a modicum of respect from the high-ranking Red Ribbon contingent. Gero was left to fester in his lab, the commander paying much less attention to his wants and needs. But that did mean that Gero could maybe work on other things that we may already know. But fortunately for the commander, Kakarot was rather partial to practical training and combat training, like Hema said. She had found a way to make it fun and engaging for him, so his progress was even better. Yes, she was raising possibly the ultimate super soldier to be used for the Red Ribbon's desires, and this might lead to some casualties, but it's not the most noble of causes, but she at least managed to get the child away from a life of being cooped up in a cage, or worse, dissected. Now, does Gable get involved? Well, yes, I would say so. Once Gable had graduated from school, he came back to join the army as a soldier himself, something we already know. Hema was very pleased to see him, and introduced Gable to his younger brother. Hema had named the child eventually Jasper, after another type of red crystal, and his progress had been very impressive. With constant training and focus, Jasper had become rather determined and much more stable than he had been under Gero's care. Had he had the bump on the head? No, he was still like a Saiyan, but he had had the loving care of Hema, plus something to do and a goal to strive for, which sort of evened things out. With Gable there now too, he took to being an older brother really well. As Jasper grew, Gable would be teaching him tricks and things to do to make his more detailed combat training all the more effective. The two of them were very much the best of friends, to which Hema was very pleased about. Meanwhile, Gero had been busy making his androids. He had asked to be transferred to the Red Ribbon's facility outside Null City, out in the mountains, not long after Hema had pulled a fast one on him. He couldn't bear being anywhere near his failure, the baby, and that foul sneak of a woman. And so, he set to work making the likes of Android 8 and whatnot. With Hima now established as Gero's replacement at the main HQ, she would ensure that anything the army created outside of Gero's stuff was a little more humane. Jasper's first field assignment, actually, was to gather the Dragon Balls. Thanks to Hima's help, they had found out about the Dragon Balls and crafted a Dragon Radar of sorts. It wasn't as good as Bulma's iteration, of course not, but with Jasper and Gable out there working alongside one another, they were able to use the coordinates from base to retrieve the Dragon Balls rather effectively from under Bulma's fingers, cause she's just a girl, and they're 2 super soldiers. And when Commander Red got wind that the girl of Capsule Corp's boss was in on the mission too, he vowed to use the wish on them not to make himself taller, or at least not this first one, but to do what he said he would do originally, secure world domination. And with these 2 skilled soldiers, they did it. Pilaf had no answer to these 2. And thanks to the additional help of the supporting cast of Red Ribbon operatives, the wish was carried out, thanks to Jasper and Gable's leadership. This meant that the Red Ribbon army was unopposed. They ruled the world, effectively, with Jasper being their main man and figurehead when it came to defending them from any fools who would dare try to oppose them. And this remained the same for many years. That is until Raditz showed up. He does meet his brother Kakarot though, and tries to tell him he is a Saiyan from outer space, but this news is far less effective in throwing Jasper for a loop. I already know I'm an alien, so big whoop. State your business or get lost, freak. Raditz didn't take too kindly to this, or the backup from the army that Jasper had that came their way. He was being backed into a corner, and Raditz doesn't like being backed into a corner. He flew upward and issued forth a double Sunday, which utterly decimated the Red Ribbon army, save for Jasper. Even Gable had been felled by the blast, and Jasper had had enough. He was slightly stronger than Goku was in the original, but that meant that he was still nothing compared to his brother, and with no allies to help him, not even Piccolo Jr., Jasper was a sitting duck. Sad to see his brother rail against him, Raditz promptly blasted him away too. Ashamed to do this, and disappointed, and he would most likely have disappointed his father's wishes, but he wasn't listening to reason, his brother. He gave him plenty of chances too. Well, Raditz better call Frieza and tell him of this planet, he better be doing his job. Apparently, what was left of its main empire seemed of small amusement with the Red Ribbon lot. As for Hima, she barely survived the entire onslaught. When she found out that Jasper had been slain by this monster, she broke down. The entire army had been destroyed. But that was only the beginning. Once Frieza had gotten his hands on the planet, she was one of the last senior figureheads of the army left, and she was their public enemy number 1. She had to be found for the sake of Frieza's goals. She had gone into hiding. The only place left of her? North City, the lab of Gero. And Gero? She had to crawl back to him. Despite the chance to gloat, Gero took her in and had an idea to prevent this alien ruler from taking the planet, and for a chance of her to forgive him. He would need her help, and her body. He had conducted copious amounts of research over the years, and had created the tools needed to formulate a powerful android cyborg based on the strongest fighters of Earth, seeing Jasper's progress from afar, and the brief intel he had gotten from Raditz's initial push. And so, Hima agreed to avenge her adopted son, and Gabo, and Earth. As such, Android 21 in orbit name was born. Does this work against Frieza and the like? Well, I thought I'd leave that to you this time, as that really wasn't the goal of this story. The goal of this being, had 21 raised Goku, he would have had a much better time of it than he would have done had it been just Gero taking care of him. I just needed to scratch that itch is all. But what did you folks think? Do you feel that this was a good way to go about it? Would you add some more details to it? Perhaps you could check out my other alternate similar story, The Boxer What If, for some inspiration. And I shall see you in the next video. Catch you later!